a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those who protect this universe, this multiverse, against the dangers that lie in wait. Are they the agents of the TVA? Or is it Loki himself? We'll find out tonight. Enough said. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. Welcome back to another episode of Loki. Season 1, Episode 2, The Variant. Mobius puts Loki to work, but not everyone at the TVA is thrilled about the God of Mischief's presence. Our director tonight is Kate Herron. Our writers are, of course, Alyssa Karasik, Michael Walden, Jack Kirby, and, of course, Stan Lee. Get those created by credits. And that's everybody. The written by was Alyssa Karasik and Michael Waldron was our created by. Okay, so tonight's episode takes us back to a quaint little town in, I believe it was Oshkosh, Wisconsin, to a local Renaissance fair. We're in
1985.
1985, you know. Tonight we're going to party like it's 1985. And as we go into it, we are in the midst of not an incursion, but a variant causing mischief. And the TVA agents have to go in. These are not the TVA agents we've grown attached to, but a new and different group who quite quickly get ambushed, get mind-controlled in a way that we have not seen since the Scarlet Witch, and although with green energy, not red, and then proceeds to beat up our TVA agents to the song, I Need a Hero, which, of course, opens that immediate question, who really is the hero in this scene? She escapes with a hostage, and that's the start of our show. We have Mobius getting permission to take Loki into the on a mission to track down this variant. Although it's interesting because we see the variant has already left this timeline. You know, we know that she's left, but they go there looking for her, which is always the thing. They're coming there too late. But when they're there, this I find interesting because we have Loki basically try to stall for time, try to distract Mobius and the gang, but nothing he says there turns out to be wrong. He says, I see a plot. I see something deeper. The timekeepers are in danger. You know, she's plotting, or we don't want to say she yet because we don't know that yet, but yes, the variant is plotting something, and Loki knows what it is.
Does he, though?
Well, that's the question. Does he or does he not? Because here's what I'll say. He was right when we get to the end. What her plan was, seemingly, was exactly everything she said, or everything that Loki said. That she's attacking the Time Variance Authority, attacking the Timekeepers, and
but that's something they know already.
I'm sorry?
That's nothing that's news to them. He found out about it because they told him about it.
No, actually, they don't know that she's trying to attack the Timekeepers.
Well, she's been attacking the Timekeepers.
No, she's been attacking the TVA agents.
Oh, right. That's what I meant. She's been attacking the TVA agents and filling up timelines. Okay, fair enough. So
yes, so
yeah, but I don't think that requires a special like Kojak degree to guess that she's trying to attack the time. You know.
Well, actually, maybe does. I mean, arguably you're right it's logical that she should know that they might understand that. But at the same time, I can see, what my point is that it's very clear nothing he says in this scene is a lie. They know it's a delaying tactic, but honestly, if they had gone out looking for the variant, all they're actually going to do is just increase the amount of time dilation anyway. Because we do see that within a certain area, they can contain the problem. That presumably when they set off that time, it doesn't wipe out that whole universe, it just clears the tent. Because nothing outside of the tent was really that problematic to the timeline. It was just what was in the tent, what happened in the tent was where things got to be problematic. And they just reset everything to where it was supposed to be. Which is another interesting point, because you get into this idea that when there is a variation, it has to do with the way that things play out from that moment in the timeline.
It seems to me they're killing branches, right? So if that's true, that you cannot go back and affect the same time branch, right? That anytime you change something, it's a whole new branch. It's a whole new version of you. So if they're going out, what they seem like doing, not just little pockets of the tent, that whole reality is now bifurcated into a different reality because they affected change. And now that whole reality, that whole branch has to be eliminated. All those 8 billion people die.
Not necessarily. And this is just something, and this goes into what we see at the end of this episode. So spoilers for the whole episode. So just to jump ahead, when we get the attack on the timeline, and we get the multiple destruction, the multiple points in time that are getting all of these time charges sent to them, basically wiping out moments in history. What we see is as the branches branch out, you would actually see the sacred timeline start to bend with the branches. So that essentially what's happening is that there is a gravity to the branches. So that when you eliminate the parts that were not supposed to be here, everything else kind of just falls back into where it's supposed to be. So for example, the lady may remember that some weirdos came to the Ren Fair that day, but, weirdos come to the Ren Fair every day. That seeing those weirdos there doesn't necessarily
So it's not necessarily
disrupt the sacred timeline.
Pruning branches, but they're just bending and shaping the branches.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's like they don't blink everyone out of existence, just the things that have been knocked out of existence.
Causing it to bend the other way.
Exactly, which is, again, something we see when Loki finds the secret, as it were. But before then, we do get nice interplay between both Mobius and Renslayer. Mobius is a little upset because apparently Renslayer has another agent who's also bringing her trophies. Which is another one of these interesting questions about what is really happening here. Is this other agent who is going out and bringing her back stuff? Is it someone that she is working with in the Time Variance Authority as a helper, or is she maybe have someone on the side who is giving her things, and maybe she's looking the other way because she's getting them? Because it's interesting that she does have this very fancy office with all these nice things, and maybe it's that she is just likes to collect them, but it's all on the up and up. Or maybe there is someone who keeps on coming to her from outside the timeline, like a Kang the Conqueror, who is manipulating her with these sort of trophies as his gifts of love, as it were. So I find it interesting. I'm curious as to what it all means, but We don't know yet, obviously. But they feel that Loki ruined the app. I don't think Loki ruined the app at all. I think they were never going to track down where the variant went. It's easy to blame him, but
if you were going to get it right, you would have gotten it right by now.
Exactly.
You had it in you to get it right. You got farther, you got closer to the variant than you ever had before, and you just weren't prepared. Don't blame this on Loki. He got you closer than you ever did before.
And again, when I say that Loki doesn't lie to them here, what he says is exactly what the variant was planning is true, which is, I think, the real selling point of this, is that Loki does have insight into this, into the variant, into the other variant. Loki does know what is causing problems here. So
he also knows what a Loki would do given a certain set of surroundings. And he can have a pretty good guess of, hey, what would I do to get out of this? Why would I be doing this? What would motivate? It's probably this. So, yeah.
Exactly. And that is the idea, that there is clearly something going on here that he sees, because it is this idea. Why is she stealing the time bombs? Why is she stealing the bombs? What are those for? Why did she take a hostage? She's never taken a hostage before. And we're using she because we do know the reveal, but yes. Why is the variant suddenly taking hostages? And all those factors go together. They took a hostage because they needed information. They're taking the pruning debt charges because they're going to prune a lot of stuff. They're planning an attack of some sort. So it is very interesting that he's not lying, but that obviously they're all being mad because the variant got away. And they put on, they then have Loki do paperwork, which is, the ultimate punishment for the god of mischief. Although, arguably, is a great test of his skills. Because while he's in there, he gets to go through things. He learns about Ragnarok. Though, arguably, he already knew about Ragnarok when he watched his life. But it is, it is seeing it. And that is where he comes to understand what is interesting about apocalypse events, because if everybody dies, yes, no one will know. However, it's interesting with Ragnarok because not everybody died in Ragnarok, of course. Obviously, a lot of Asgardians got away, and many more were killed by Thanos. But there are many who did survive. So, arguably, you could, if you were there and you did certain things, it would cause problems so long as everyone who was supposed to get off got off. But if you saved an extra person, then they would actually be a variant. So Ragnarok is actually a bad example of this, which is why it's good that they don't go to Ragnarok. But when they go to Pompeii, they see exactly what they needed to see. Because nobody survived Pompeii. Anyone that was there died. Which is why they had to find a place that would, and actually and I'm going to get to that in a moment, when they're talking, the place they actually go, which is a Roxcart megastore that was used as a shelter during a hurricane that will eventually be blown away and everyone in it will die. But what is perfect about that, it is that, yes, it is an apocalypse, but it is also a slow-moving apocalypse. Which means that the time from when the apocalypse starts, which is when everyone's inside and no one can leave, to the actual moment when the Roxcart building gets destroyed, is probably like 2, 3, 4 hours, maybe even more. That all these people are going to die. They're not going to be able to get out of here because they can't get anyone in there to get them out. And eventually this storm is just going to tear that building apart. But it's going to take so much time between when they go in and when they don't come out. So she can go there. So like when you think about Mount Vesuvius, they've got to be there at a very specific time for the apocalyptic event because it happens so fast. But if it's something like a hurricane that's going to take this long time, where you're going to have a target that you know everyone that was in there died and no one got out alive, that's when you can really be hidden. There's also another interesting thing that Loki says before he goes on his first adventure with the TVA, which is about duplication, which is not illusion. And this is interesting, and of course a lot of people seized on this because it was a very specific thing he said, and also specifically that he says it is a mirror copy of your being as it exists in that moment, rather than just it's not an illusion, it's a molecule by molecule recreation, which people have seized on to say that maybe Loki didn't die in Endgame or in Infinity War, that he just did a duplication spell that no one caught, because as we see, he's very good at his magic, and he can do it very subtly without people noticing. Just like he does everything very subtly without people noticing. And so perhaps that was the spell he used there, which explains why people point out that he uses his non-dominant hand to try and stab Thanos rather than his normal dominant hand, and because it's the mirror image of himself. And of course, because it is an exact molecular reproduction, that's why nobody notices. So interesting theory. That's out there. People have discussed it.
I'd buy that.
Yeah. I like it, honestly.
I do too.
Getting back to the Roxcart incident, where we are dealing with when he gets approval to go there, and of course that was the other thing where because the variant intentionally left a clue, which was the blue. Was it
blue bubble?
Yeah, I forget what it was called now. But yeah, the blueberry, spelled funnily, blueberry gum, that it was this very blueberry gum from this exact point in history. And by the way, it's so much fun when they're running through all the apocalypses over the next few years, the death of the swallow in 2047. And it's like, yeah, really screwed up the ecosystem. Although I'm surprised that counts as an apocalypse because, again, how was that an apocalypse in the sense that we've seen it, whereas of people being wiped out? But who knows? I guess maybe the swallows took a bunch of people with them.
or it had something to do with, some ecosystem chain that was broken, like, bees not being able to pollinate. So we can't have produce, we can't have food to feed, and couple on top of that. How long is this after the snap?
Well, this one?
Well, I guess they can go anywhere, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is the snap was supposed to happen. So everything that's happening in this right now, well, as I say, the Time Variance Authority, time passes differently. It's outside of time. So Loki in this one is from the first Avengers movie, which I think was, 7 years prior, I think 7 years prior.
Okay, yeah, so he was taken from that moment well before.
Exactly, well before any of this stuff happened in about 2013. So that's his perspective. But which is one of those fun things he makes when he says to the Pompeians as he's speaking in his Greek. Not ancient Greek though, so I'm sure there's something that's not how they spoke in actual. And actually, was that? Yeah, that was Greek. Yes, Pompeii is in Greece. It was a Roman tourist destination, but it was still technically Greece. As he's speaking, I'm sure there was a lot of nerds like that's not actually how they spoke in Pompeii at the time. Because it's weird. Linguists work very hard to reproduce like what sounds actually sounded like back in the day, which is
sure.
It's fun. It's fun. One of my favorite YouTubes is Native Lang, and it's just this. And he really gets a lot of details about how languages evolve and what does this sound like and what is that.
wow.
And he's just a very soothing talker with very simple cartoons, but it's a really fun video. If you're a language nerd, and I am, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, what was my point? I had a point. I forgot it. Okay.
The fact that he was Greek and Mobius was really
when he
scared.
says he's from the future.
Right.
He says he's from the future. He says, I know this because I'm from the future. And then he looks at Mobius and says, we are from the future, right? Which is that, are they from the future? Time variance, time passes differently. They're not really from the future. They're not really from the past. They're from when they are from.
Right. They're just from a relative time. That's it.
Yes. So the one guard who is the guard that does not like Loki, does not trust Loki, and she decides that Mobius is not going to go with Loki.
Right, which is funny because if you look at the history of their interactions, hers have been on the losing end every single time when she's come up against Loki. Mm-hmm. So how dare she have the gall to say no, let me do it. You can't, I can't. Really? You clearly don't know how to handle this asset, and he clearly does.
Yeah.
Because to think about it, he was kidnapped. He was captured, right? Mm-hmm. And he's being made to work for them. Now, he has gotten Loki much, much further in doing things for them than you have. You have done nothing but, antagonize him and make him less useful to your efforts.
Well, although to be fair to her, and this is a little thing we get at the beginning of it, is that Lokis cause a lot of problems on the timeline. The Lokis do not like to stay put. They do not like to follow the path that their timekeepers have set out for them. So they go out, they become variants.
Right.
We see a Frost Giant Loki. We see a Hulk Loki, which I liked. We see Loki winning the Tour de France, so that was cool. I love that just because it just speaks of another bet that Loki
right.
you got to go get me the cup from the Tour de France now. All right, I'll go get the cup.
That's funny.
Win the Tour de France and I just love. For me, I love the idea that the Norse gods, like between the Prose Edda and the Dawn of the Avengers, they're just always goofing off, playing pranks, making stupid bets. And
maybe in this universe, because Loki wins the Tour de France one year, maybe what's his name doesn't get in trouble. Lance Armstrong.
Who knows? Yeah. Well,
he breaks the streak and it never raises suspicion.
There you go. He would have gotten away with it too. Actually, what got him in trouble was that they had meticulous records of all of the doping he did. Because even if you lose, it's still against the rules to dope.
Well, technically that's not true. Because numbers 2 through 8 were also doping heavily. And nobody else got in trouble.
I think even if you lose, you do get suspensions. But it was worse because he won.
All I know is he was made a martyr and nobody else was touched. Every single other person up to number 1 through number 8 were all doping. We're all caught doping.
Yeah, I think they might have all turned evidence on him too. So I think they all turned evidence on him too. So.
But without turning themselves, you know what I mean? So it was a little.
No, I know what you're saying, but that's normally how those things go. Is the guy because they're trying to figure out who's the one in charge of the doping, and at least according to the records, Lance was the consummate competitor that he is. He was very meticulous about this is when we draw the blood, this is when we put the blood back in, and it's a whole thing you do.
Yeah, but it wasn't wildly different than what everybody else was doing. It's just that he was in number 1, managed to win, and that's the guy we got to go after.
Yeah, well, that happens. That happens, and yeah, and of course, and it's interesting because we really only have the records of his doping from his later wins when he came back. So we don't know if he actually won the first few on his own or not. But of course, because he was caught doping, everything becomes tainted. So
Right. But I mean, the entirety of the sport is tainted.
yeah, well, although to be fair, like, you know, they tend to have moments like that when someone gets too blatant about it.
Fair
and
enough.
to that extent,
that. That makes sense.
Nobody minds you doping so long as you're being subtle and no one's starting to say that's not, it's like when they had the big home run derbies and then it was like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
These guys are all hitting these balls, It was just a lot right then, and basically you could look at the guys, you could see they put on a lot of weight, and
yeah.
Likewise, and that's the thing, is when Lance Armstrong just keeps on winning, really, if he was smart.
And I think the thing that people objected to is it ruins the image, this narrative that the game is fair. If you take that away, then the reason for sport existing as an entertainment venue loses its integrity.
Yeah,
and that you can't have the public lose faith in the integrity of the sport in order for them to be able to still sell ads.
Exactly. So, that's what happened to poor Lance, and maybe Loki could have stopped all that, but as we know,
didn't happen in our timeline.
Yeah, the timekeepers said no. Lance has to go down. Right. So blame the timekeepers in the secret timeline. But yes, they're very flawed. But we go into Roxcart and we meet the first person who's under a glamour, and I believe they say he's under a glamour.
Do they?
I don't think they say he. I don't know if they use
enchantment. That's what they use.
Did they say the word enchantment in this one? I thought they didn't start using that to the next episode.
Oh, okay. Perhaps you're right.
Yes, but either way, we see that, yes, the one guy who looks so familiar, and of course I've already closed the IMDb, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
The jock dude?
No, the first guy, the guy who was buying the plants.
Oh, interesting. I didn't...
Yeah, because he was the first guy, because he jumps to the TVA agent, and then she takes it up. And by the way, I do love how they really got really excellent actors to play Tom Hiddleston in this. You know what I mean? Like they're all people who very much were able in their presentation to if not look like Loki, at least to act like Loki. And I'm trying to see if they have Hunter B-15 is the one that does not trust Loki. That's Wunmi Mosaku, and Sasha Lane is Hunter C-20. That's the one that gets taken over. And
I think I've seen that actress in episodes of
which one?
I can't remember. The one who gets glamored.
She was in Lovecraft Country.
She was also in something else, like either Dark, I think, or.
Oh. Well, I mean, she does work a lot.
I can't quite place it. It's a very, very unique and specific look. Can't quite place it, but I've seen her in something else. She's very good.
Yeah. She's been in a lot of stuff.
It might have been Black Mirror, if I'm not mistaken, but...
Yeah, there we go. I think it was... Lucius Baston is the male shopper, yeah. And... Let's see what else he's been in. He's been in Loki. He was also in he was also in Lovecraft Country. So apparently that's why I knew him, because they pulled a lot of people from Lovecraft Country to be in here. So good. It's a good show, by the way, Lovecraft Country.
I've heard. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. It is really exciting and powerful and just fun to watch. And just pulling up B-20 here. Lovecraft Country. Oh, she's also in Fantastic Beasts. Oh, and she was in. She was also in Batman v Superman. She was Kahina Ziri. I don't know. I don't know if that's a Kryptonian name or not. But Wunmi Mosaka.
B-15.
Yeah.
Oh, she was in Batman vs. Superman.
That's what it says here, yep. And Lovecraft Country, she was also in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. She was Beryl.
Interesting.
So if you've seen any of those, you've seen her at her finest. Yes, but so first it jumps into her, and we do see that they are having their little conversation as they go about the store and talking, and Loki is, and she's like all mad at him because, obviously she, how is he a god of mischief if he's working for the man? He's like, I'm not working for them. I'm doing my own thing. Do you know how hard it was to gain their trust? And really and again, is he lying? We don't know. He is definitely, whatever he's saying, he is saying, what is happening is he is really making a good case for why he actually is manipulating everyone, which is why maybe, B-20 should not have trusted him, or sorry, B-15 should not have trusted him because, yeah, maybe he actually was plotting this the whole time.
I almost see it this way, like he found himself in a strange situation and he's trying to piece together what I can make out of it. He is the god of mischief, so to him it's just like, oh, what a fun game. What can I do? Ooh, I wonder what this does. And he's sort of just having fun. I don't think he really knows. It's like the Joker in The Dark Knight when he says, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I wouldn't know what to do with it if I ever caught one. Right, so I think he's in this place where he's just like, oh, I wonder what this is. He doesn't really have a plan, but he's like, oh, that might be fun. Hey, let me go mess with the timekeepers. That's what I'll do. And if something else catches his fancy, he might just jump ship and go to another plan. I think he's just having fun.
What I think you can say is that he never has a plan, but he's always thinking 6 steps ahead. He doesn't know where he doesn't.
He never has a plan, but he's always plotting.
Exactly. He's always thinking, how do I get into and out of this next mess? And then we get a nice jumping. We meet Randy. Randy was great. Again, someone filled with glorious purpose. And again, like I said, really great actors in this. And then we get the big guy, the big shopper. And I don't know, man, because I kind of feel like they're so unclear in exactly how strong, any of these, how strong the Asgardians should be, because they're clearly that was Hawk Waits is Country Hoss is how they built him. Yeah, he's the big guy, and although I guess there is an argument to be made that if you took over someone's body and jacked up their adrenaline, they could probably smash anybody pretty hard. Yeah. So, and it's not like he's going to be dead soon anyway. It's a rental. So she's
right. If you overclock the body,
exactly. She basically is Captain America now.
Right. You can be Captain America for 2 seconds and your body will break down, but you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. And which is also why she keeps on burning through the bodies, because she's, again, is really just delaying Loki. Keeping him talking, keeping him active, keeping him from alerting the TVA about what she's doing. Because we do see that, yes, we do see Lady Loki at the end, which, by the time this comes out, you'll probably have all heard that she is actually listed as Sylvie in the credits.
Which is so interesting, because in the comics, didn't he create a mirror version of himself called Sylvie, and that was a different character than Lady Loki?
Well, there was actually a woman named Sylvie Lushton.
Right.
Who, and this is actually after...
Hey, can I pause this for 1 second? We'll set on Sylvie Rushton right quick. I just got to go take care of something. I'll be right back.
You do.
So, tell me more about...
So Sylvie Lushton was essentially a human woman that Loki had imbued with powers to essentially groom her to be the new Enchantress. Because at that point in history, the Enchantress had died during one of the recent cycles of Ragnarok, and Loki missed her. So Loki brings her back as the Enchantress, she joins a group of young. They essentially was a group of other young supervillains called the Young Masters, because they were the Masters of Evil, and they were fighting the Young Avengers because that's the supervillain group who fights the Avengers. Is the Masters of Evil fight the Avengers? So that is who Sylvie Lushton is. Her current whereabouts, I don't know in comic books, but honestly, so many people, you don't know what their current whereabouts are. That's just comic books. Some other writer will bring them back someday, But, so that's who Sylvie Lushton is, who this Sylvie, and there is a little blink if you miss it scene apparently where you do see on one of the Loki variant, files, there is this little thing that says Sylvie Lofty's daughter.
Oh.
Which actually...
Or not Lofison?
Well, yes, because it was a daughter. That's actually how the naming convention works in Norse. So.
Is that right?
Yes, you will see people who have the daughter last name. And usually it was if you were someone's daughter, you were their daughter. If you were their son, you were their son. And
it's like that in Arabic too. Ibn whatever. Sometimes these Arabic people have long names. Ibn this, and just means son of this, son of this, son of this.
Yeah, and that's how that. So that's similar in the Norse tradition. Obviously, the daughters' names eventually fell out of favor, and when it all got anglicized. But you will, from every so often, if you actually go to Norway or any of the Scandinavian countries, you will meet people with a daughter last name. And that is...
Would it say daughter, or would it say whatever word means daughter in their language?
No, it's DOTTER, daughter.
Oh.
It's actually, the word daughter is actually a Slavo-Germanic name, or a Slavo-Germanic word.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
English, it's a bunch of hodgepodges of people that wandered across those crazy islands up in the north. Anyway, but so this is Sylvie, and she drops her bombs onto the timeline, then goes through the portal, and we see Mobius and their gang catch up to him. As he pauses for a moment, then decides to go through the door.
And that's credit to the work Mobius put in. The fact that a captured, what's the word I'm looking for? Inmate would even think twice before escaping. He felt bad. He felt bad leaving him out in the lurch because he felt a bit of kinship with him. He wanted to help him. And that just shows you how good Mobius is at his job. Yeah, and it is. I mean, that is true. Although there's, and this is where it goes into these layers and levels on things. Because I don't think Loki plans, but he's always scheming, like we said, or he does, or like his plans are always like there's an end point, and then there's a lot of improv in the end, and it's like all improv. And I feel like even the end point changes based on whatever makes him feel good at the moment. Like real improv, you're just trying to get to that point where we get the laugh. Just going for the laugh or going for the gut punch. We're going for that emotional reaction. Whatever we're gonna get, we're gonna work our way there, and we know we want to get to something, and now we got to figure out how we're gonna get there. But so even when he goes through, there's a part of me that wonders, is he going through so that they can track her? Because he knows they have his temporal aura. And he knows that if she goes through, they're never going to find her again. Because she will have disappeared through the door, and there's no way for them to catch her. But if he goes through the door, then maybe his temporal aura is going to be trackable to them. They can find him on the timeline. So if that's the case, if he is really trying to help the Time Variance Authority, what do you think is motivating him to do that? That's only a possibility. That's what he's doing. And that's sort of the thing. It's like,
when he's, and again, where it could be multiple layers on multiple things. He could be, and from their perspective, he went through the door. He went through the door, perhaps to escape, but if they catch him, first that the words out of his mouth. So, well, of course I knew you'd track I knew you had my temporal order. I knew you'd track my temporal order. And you would never find her again if you didn't have me there as a guide for you to track. Now, would you? Because that is what he does. And although it's interesting, but as we see that, and we'll see where they go next week, but just before she leaves, we see the bombs are going off. We see the timeline splittering. She's blowing up things. She blows up stuff on Ego. She blows up stuff on Nowhere. She blows up stuff in Asgard. There's a lot of interesting places that got knocked out of the timeline. So, and we see the thing branching out, and we see everyone getting ready to fight. Because we see all of the TVA agents are being deployed all over the timeline to stop these branches. And we'll see what happens next week, Mozz. Any final thoughts from you?
Plan is like, what does she want from the Timekeepers? Why does she want to destroy them? Or like, what's her motivation? What is your best guess?
My best guess is, well, my actual best guess is, I don't think she knows either. I think as much as she is saying she's got a plan, I don't think her plan is as much a plan as she says it's a plan. I think she has a plan to get to, but much like, a dog chasing a car.
Right.
When she gets that car.
And I don't want to get into territory for next episode, but like certain characteristics of her personality just point to that. Exactly. She's a bit of a petulant child throwing tantrums at times. So I could see that.
Well, that is, she is a Loki.
Right.
And Loki is, to a great extent, a petulant child. I'm very excited to see more, and we'll talk about more about that when we talk about the next episode. But yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I'm really hoping we get a lot more of what the lives of these Lokis were. Because I think there's a lot more that even they don't know that they're going to discover as they go through this adventure. So, all right, Mozz.
This is the first time Loki is made aware that there are other variants of him. I mean, this is the first time he's finding out about the Time Variance Authority and their control that they have over things. But is this his first time waking up to the fact that there are other Lokis, or has he been sort of aware of the fact that there are other Lokis or other timeline? Well, then it makes me think of that moment where he sees something happen on screen that didn't happen. He goes, "What is this? This is obviously a lie. This never happened." So that idea that it could be wasn't even there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think, unless you are a sorcerer working with time, the idea of multiple parallel possible timelines maybe does not even register with you. And honestly, they may not even register with someone like Doctor Strange, because to him, those are all just potential timelines. He doesn't imagine that they might actually actively exist. And that's the real question, because if they actually exist, and that is actually one of those interesting questions here, because the TVA knows if a timeline goes past red, they can't prune it.
Oh, maybe at that point they would have to kill the whole timeline in order to reshift the balance.
If they could. If they have that power. That's the question. Yeah, you see, that's where things get a little more convoluted. So, when they say, because I actually think it means they can't, that basically there is this multiverse, there are these what-if worlds that exist because they couldn't stop them, or they know that when they get to this point, there's no way to stop them.
Right. That's the real fear. Not that they would have to kill the timeline, but that they can't any longer. So they need to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think that's what they're going for with that.
Yeah.
All right, Mozzie. It's a great show, without a doubt, and I'm looking forward to talking about this for the next few weeks with you. If someone wants to talk with you about it, Mozz, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzora. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things like sometimes Legends of Tomorrow when I remember and I don't fall asleep. At Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, you have listened to another episode of Nuff Said. We have watched as the TVA have continued to protect the sacred timeline, or so they say. Nuff said.